Hey everyone, this is Mental Health is True Wealth. I'm your favorite autonomy coach, AB, aka your mental health personal trainer. Welcome to the session. So today we're going to discuss, are you faster than your past? I noticed everyone on social media, they like to follow the different trends and share things, but sometimes I don't think they understand the gravity of what they are sharing. So I really hate when we follow trends on social media, and I'm talking in reference to this post that has been surfacing the net. So where do we get off defining someone else's trauma? If the unpleasant experiences alter their perspective or their reality on a particular situation, it can absolutely be viewed as trauma. I hate people that attempt to discuss psychology without coming from a psychology background, because you can start to minimize and affect someone else's perspective. And we all know that social media and platforms are very, very, very powerful. The trauma is in the eyes of the person that is experiencing the problem. It's defined by them. There's no set exact rules defining trauma. We do have a little guidelines, but there's not one set definition to trauma. Trauma can be a loss of someone's parents, which is significant, or something as simple as losing a relationship, or even just an unpleasant experience at a job. Let's discuss some smaller traumas that people refuse to acknowledge because we have started to normalize different problems or different areas in people's life. So something like a job. I had a friend who had a few bad run-ins with a job. Her entire perspective and performance was altered at these jobs based off of these experiences. It started to affect her ability to trust, and it just bled in almost every aspect of her life. Someone else might view this as a minimal issue and be like, man, it's just a job. Who cares? It's a job. We get another one. But in fact, it's her career. So how do we tell someone that this isn't a traumatic event? We have to ask, how does the event alter your mental status? And that's how we should view that. The next question is, how does this event change their perspective or our perspective on how we view things? So when I was talking about that trust issue, now I want everything in writing, which isn't a bad thing. It can bring about a good change, but it also can make you start to have catastrophic thoughts when it pertains to that. So let's move on to a relationship. One person might be able to be like, oh, I'm done with this relationship. And we all know those people who will cut a situation off without any hesitation. And then you have others that will hold on to it. So while that person who holds on to it, they might start to develop trust issues, insecurities, and damage their ability to tell somebody this wasn't a traumatic experience for them. How do we tell them that this event was not a serious event? We can't minimize someone else's feelings. And I think that's really important, in that we have lost context in that as a society, where we try to minimize everything just because it's small to you. Addressing trauma is real. Do we feel like we can outrun our past, or we can outrun our trauma? The hardest thing a person can do on their journey of wellness is self-reflection and changing the narrative. Those two things seem really simple, but it's actually very complicating. And I actually struggled with those things on my health and wellness journey. What we want is people to move from a victim's mindset and learn, how can we prevent these events from becoming traumatic events in the future? How can we stop allowing these events to affect our past, our future, and our present? So the real work comes into addressing the trauma. So now that we've discussed people minimizing experiences, let's go ahead and address the trauma. Addressing the trauma, or the trauma will address you, because as I've stated many times, the trauma is going to choose to address you at the least opportune time. We often swallow trauma to the point we vomit it all up, and now we find ourselves in a state of a crisis. We're finding ways to cope with a mountain of issues that could have been a small hill. Ever notice how you get really sick when you overeat? Trauma works the exact way, unprocessed trauma. Why are you collecting hurt and pain and trauma? These aren't trophies that are worth keeping. Our body holds on to all the trauma that is unprocessed, and that is why some of us, we feel horrible. People don't realize that your mental health affects your physical health. The trauma will start to manifest itself into physical pain. So you notice people like, oh, my back hurt, or different things like that, and they feel a little bit older than what they actually are. That's all that unprocessed trauma. If we could address the trauma alone, we would, but the reality is we don't know how to be healthy. That's not something usually that your parents teach you. And if you watch some of my other videos, I had a video